It's a joy for me to stand up here today and to give this message in our second week of our Gospel of Thomas program. And so let's see what's up there. There you go. All about Gnosis. That's the name of my message today. Now, Chris, practitioners, myself, created this wonderful program that's going on this month. Look at these wonderful booklets Chris printed. All this material in here that's being reviewed. If you're not in one of the, how many are there? Three? Kate's has one. I have one. Alexis has one. If you're not in one of those three groups and you want to be, two of them are on Monday and mine is on Thursday at my house, at Kate's house, or at Alexis. Oh, is Alexis doing it here? Okay. So you're welcome to join any of those. So if you're interested, see one of us after service. If it's Alexis' house, she's not here today, but that's okay. If you want to go there, I don't even know if she's doing it this week because I know she's out of town. But anyway, the United, our Centers for Spiritual Living organization, created an annual theme because this year is the 100th anniversary of the actual establishment of the science of mind. I guess it's synchronized with 1918, the first book that was published of Ernest Holmes, although I know that he was speaking before that and doing things in front of people, but that's the actual established date. And for the month of April, the title for the theme is When Humanity and Divinity Meet, parenthesis, the Science of Mind. How they all converge together. So Chris, in looking at this month, and for today's topic, the message was the individual and the universal. So Chris thought, wonderful to create a program and looking at the Gospel of Thomas, because as she told us partially last week, the Gospel of Thomas was discovered, I think, 1945, 42, somewhere around there at Nag Hammadi in, I think it's Egypt, some portion of Africa. And these are the Gospels that were actually written after Jesus' time, shortly after Jesus' time. And we have to remember that we have other Gospels, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, which were not necessarily written by those four apostles as it was, but they are actually named after them. Possibly some of it is contributed to them. But the Gospel of Thomas was written quite differently when it was actually found in comparison to the other four Gospels, and more closely related to the Gospel of John. And there's some conjecture in this book by Elaine Pagels, who wrote Beyond Belief, The Secret Gospel of Thomas. If you're interested, it's a very good book. She's a wonderful author, and she writes easy enough for you to understand, and there are notes in the back in reference. So, very good reference book. But she says in there that there's some thoughts that the Gospel of John was written and formatted to be a response to the Gospel of Thomas. Now, they come from two different ways. The Gospel of Thomas comes more from what we understand the teachings of Jesus to be, and that was in parables. Instead of him saying, do this, do that, whatever, he would give some type of lesson that the individual themselves would have to figure out. And it was through the Gospel of Thomas primarily that Jesus said that I and the Father are one. In other words, it is the Father within who doeth the work. So the writing out of the Gospel of Thomas, aligned the God presence with every individual. It's in all of us. Whereas the Gospel of John did the exact opposite. There were mandates out of the Gospel of John. Jesus said, do this, do this, do this. So that's a little bit more background. So today, my topic is on Gnosis. Now, Gnosis is not a common word that we use every day, and neither is this slide that you'll see up there. And so that you didn't become confused with Gnosis versus gnocchi, I thought I would let you know the difference. Now, gnocchi is primarily seen as an Italian pasta of form, although it's made out of potato. I think the Italians got it from the Polish, who made the potato, whatever they made, and we ate those kind of things, although I never really liked them. But anyway, in the Italian, they're referred to as gnocchi, and they can have stuffing inside of them. They can be made out of flour, and some of you may already be familiar with them. So that's gnocchi. Now, gnosis, just a Greek word, and it means knowing. Now, the translation of knowing, in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said, let me see if I want her to change the slide yet. Yes, you can change it to the next one. Knowing. By knowing, sometimes we take it to mean knowledge, but it's not really knowledge. There's quite a difference between knowing and having knowledge. So in the Gospel of Thomas, he's telling us that we must have knowledge, but not the kind of knowledge which is of an educational format, but knowing. We must know. We must know who we are. And by knowing who we are, we have that knowing. Now, how does one get to know who they are? The other thing that Thomas pointed out as he was doing his teachings was he was moving people away from his exceptionality and toward owning our own divinity and our own destiny, the knowingness. Now, we in Science of Mind teach about knowing and understanding that we are one in God. But there's a difference between the knowledge and the study of that and the actual knowing of that. It's like Thich Nhat Hanh had a beautiful quote that said, enlightenment is when a wave realizes it is the ocean. Consider ourselves the wave. If we are the wave, then within the ocean, we are not only within it, we are all over it. We are the complete aspect of the ocean, not the wholeness of the ocean, which in the Science of Mind we teach, we are not all of God, but we have the ability and the potential of everything that is within God to express that. So the first quote that we have in our workbook that we're going to be looking at from the Science of Mind perspective says, there is a place in us which lies open to the infinite. But when the Spirit brings its gift by pouring itself through us, it can give to us only what we take. In parenthesis, I put are able or willing to. Okay? And this taking is mental. So, as Chris says, let's unpack this. There's a place in us, Ernest Holmes says, which lies open to the infinite. Within the mind, there's an openness to the infinite. The potential of the openness to the infinite. Okay? It's just, consider it as, I thought of it as the shutter of a camera. And if the shutter of the camera is constantly open to take the picture, then it has that visibility to do that. If that shutter is closed, it can not only not take the picture, but you can't see anything out in order to take the picture. Okay? So, when the Spirit brings its gift, knowing that there's no separation between us and the infinite that we talk about, when Spirit brings its gift to us, okay, and it pours itself willingly through us, it can give to us only what we take. So it's not as though the pitcher in the glass, the pitcher is going to pour completely into the glass. The pitcher is going to come so far, and then the glass has to be ready to receive. The aperture must be open in order for that which the Spirit brings is able to pour itself into us. There is no force in Spirit. Okay? So that's why we, in this human experience, have the opportunity to meet with the divine to the degree that we are able or willing to take from the divine, to be open to receive. Ernest Holmes followed this up by saying, this taking is mental. We talk about mental equivalence in the teaching of the science of mind. A mental equivalent is the understanding and the awareness of what is. Now, it's mental in that we have to understand this, and then we have to practice it. Just understanding it is not sufficient. Okay? At the bottom of the slide, it says, the science of mind says everything has its origin in mind. I cannot become available to more if my mind has not first opened to more. Now, what does the Gospel of Thomas say that correlates with this science of mind teaching? Now, that is not on a slide, but it's in the little booklet. And if you were in one of these groups, you'd have a booklet. But, hey, no pressure. No pressure. So here's how Jesus is quoted as having spoken in the Gospel of Thomas, or what was actually written. It says, his disciples said to him, show us the place where you are, since it is necessary for us to seek it. Show us the place where you are, for it is necessary for us to seek it. And his response, Jesus said to them, whoever has ears, let him hear. There is light within a man of light, and he lights up the whole world. If he does not shine, he is darkness. Now you think that's easy enough to realize that what Jesus is saying through that is that we have ears and we can hear when we pay attention and listen. So he's not just talking about hearing the spoken word out of someone's mouth, although in many instances that's how we can gain information or knowing and understanding, but it is about listening and paying attention. Okay? And there's a light in everyone, he says. and you shine your light, and the world is brighter. And if your light is not shined, then there is darkness. How many times have you been interacting with individuals, friends, family, and that, and you look at them, and you can just tell the light is out. Looks like nobody's home. You can see that something's going on inside. But that something that is going on inside is not of spirit. It is of the chatter mind. It is of the everyday experience that goes on. Okay? I heard a story this week about a woman in India who took her young child to see Gandhi in those days. She was aware and familiar with the family, and they knew one another. But her trip to see Gandhi took 5 hours by rail. But she took her child there because her 5-year-old child had a habit or an attraction to eating sweets. And all he would eat would be sugar. Sugar, sugar, sugar. I have a granddaughter like that. I should send her to India. I just thought of that. I don't know who I'd send her to, but I could send her there. Okay, so anyway, this woman rides the train for 5 hours, and she gets to Gandhi, and she goes in front of him, and she says, "Master, sir, please, please tell my son to stop eating sugar." And Gandhi looks at her, and he looks at the boy, and he says, "Come back in 1 month, and we will talk." So he sends her off, and she goes out, and she is livid. She rode the train for 5 hours. Now he's sending her back home for 5 more hours to come back in a month. While her son continues to eat sugar, she's got to come back on the train for 5 hours and come before him again. And when she does, she says, "We are here now. Please," not understanding why you didn't tell my son before, but we're here now. Please tell my son to stop eating sugar. And Gandhi looks at the little boy and says, "Stop eating sugar." And she's like, "Oh, you must be kidding me. Why didn't you just tell him that the last time we were here?" And he said, "Madam, in order for there to be any power in the words I speak, I have to become the words I speak. When you came a month ago, I was eating sugar." And it wasn't until he stopped eating sugar and knew what that was like, and he became aware of that he could, with the power of his word, say to the boy, "Stop eating sugar." That is the power of knowing, of becoming that which we desire to be, that which is the expression of the divine within us. Gandhi also said something that pertains to our ability to understand and listen. He said, "The voice for truth speaks to every person on the planet every single day, and that voice is as loud as our willingness to listen." The voice for truth speaks to every person on the planet every day. Did you flip it already? Yeah. Good. Glad you're paying attention. The voice for truth. The voice for truth, capital T, speaks to every person on the planet every single day. And that voice is as loud as our willingness to listen. You know, a lot of times when we have gone through classes, to the extent that some of us have, we have a tendency to think that we're the best listeners in the room. And how many times have I caught myself already creating the response to what the person is saying, even while they are still continuing to speak? We think we are listening. Listening is a challenging job. Listening requires that we put aside everything that is going back and forth through our minds. We think when we study, we think when we read books like this, or The Science of Mind, and we kind of understand what the books are telling us. We think that we know. You know, I can't tell you how many times I wish I had a penny for every time my kids and my grandchildren said, I know, I know, I know, I know. Wish I could find the way to tell them, that is not the meaning of know. To know is to fully embrace and become and understand what we truly are, the truth of our being. We must keep seeking. Now, there is another quote that is in our book, and I'll read the Gospel of Thomas quote first as you're looking at the Science of Mind response, or parallel, if you will. Gospel of Thomas says, Jesus says, "The one who seeks should not cease seeking until he finds. And when he finds, he will be dismayed. And when he is dismayed, he will be astonished. And he will be king over the all." So let me go through the Science of Mind one before we unpack the Gospel of Thomas. The Anatomy of Healing Prayer is a book that Ernest Holmes wrote in 1991, and on page 14.2, it says, "The search for divine unity, the realization of unity, necessitates the acceptance that there is no dividing line, that we shall expand and progress and evolve ad infinitum, in a sequence from where we are to any stage that we shall ever become. Out of eternal being comes everlasting becoming." As long as we are on the journey, as long as we are continuing to expand and continuing to progress and evolve and learn and understand and apply and fall down and get back up and fall down and get back up and continuing to make the choices in the experience in accordance with the lesson, then we learn more about the beingness and we are ever becoming. So it's interesting, this past Thursday in my group, which had three of us there. And so we got really into a lot of this already. So I have some very evolved beings in my group on Thursday night. You might want to join us. Just saying. So the Gospel of Thomas. "The one who seeks should not cease seeking until he finds." Now, when we are educating ourselves and when we're learning and understanding, we're seeking something and we believe that we have found it. We take it in and it's like, oh yeah, this is the answer, I got it. And then the next thing you know, we trip over the next step and we realize we ain't got it. All right? We have to have that lesson again. So you become dismayed out of the first time of realizing that which you were seeking, you have not completely found it. Okay? But you have learned enough that the gift was in the lesson of realizing. And when that happens, you become astonished to know that the journey continues. That there is not anyone in this life experience, except maybe the Dalai Lama and a few other Thich Nhat Hanh and those, but I'll guarantee you they spend 24/7, doing this study, doing this being, doing this becoming, so that as they travel around, they too can represent their understanding and learning that is continuing with them. And when we recognize that, we become astonished. And he says he will be king over the all. Ultimately, it is the realization of humility to put ourselves in that space of learning and continuing to apply that which we are learning. So we can ask the question, who or what are we going to follow, and where will we find God? There was a article that was recommended by the minister who wrote the material for this Sunday's CSL program. And he said, here's a great article for you to reference. And in that article, it was talking about Chris put her hand up and I just lost my train of thought. Bad. I got the power. I got the power. Here is, okay, I'm going to skip that because I can't remember the article. I'm going to go to this. Take one hand and put it in front of your eyes, partially blocking the sight of your eyes. Okay? Now take your other hand and completely block your eyes. Now, the hands that are in front of you are the everyday opportunities that we have. We see them so close to us that we lose sight of everything beyond our hands. You can put your hands down now. If you are stuck in your stuff, if you are stuck in your life, in your job, if you are stuck in your life, in your relationship, if you are stuck and have challenges and what you call problems, I call them opportunities in your anything, your social life, your family, Lord knows. So you have the opportunity to see beyond the block of that which is right in front of you. So finish this statement for me. I cannot see the forest for the trees. These are the trees. Trees are beautiful. Trees are to be admired. And what is the best way to admire a tree? Stand back from it. Don't stand so close to the tree. Now, of course, if you're hugging that tree, that's a different story. But generally, it's about admiring the trees. And how often have we gone to the national parks and that, where the trees are just in abundance, and the changing of the seasons, which I love. And you look at the trees and you see the beauty, you see the whole forest, not just one tree. You see the variations, you see how the light comes in and out all over the place. This is about experiencing, because when you can step back from your challenge, when you can step back, when you can take a breath, more or less. Stepping back allows us to take that breath. So take that breath, take it in, and begin to see everything anew. Become more of that which is inside of you than that which is outside of you. The last quote that we have for the material that we're working, you have the Science of Mind's response up here. Take a moment to read that. Well, we'll read it together. If one would know God, he must penetrate deeply into his own nature, for here alone can he find him. Now remember, the he's can be the he, she's, and the him is the synonymous, androgynous he, she, it of the higher self. If he would reveal God to his fellowship, to his fellow man, he must do so by living such a God-like life that the divine essence flows through him to others. The only way to know God is to be like him. And while this may seem discouraging in our present state of evolution, we should remember that we have but started on an eternal ladder which ever spirals upward. The journey that we take appears in this realm to be linear, but in consciousness and in action, we are ever spiraling upward. The Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known. And you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty." Now, to unpack that from the Gospel of Thomas, in parallel to the Science of Mind, he's saying the same thing. They may tell you it is in the sky and it is in the ocean and it is everywhere without saying that it is inside of you. But you must know that it is inside of you and it is outside of you. For if it is inside of you, me, then it is inside of everyone. And that which I look upon is the same as the Father within me. And the poverty that he's referring to is not the poverty in financial terms. It is the lack and limitation that we present to ourselves when we hold ourselves back from taking the kingdom and making it ours. So, what we have learned this day is that Gnosis, the knowing, does not come easy. It comes through practice. It comes through experience. It comes through allowing ourselves to let down our guard, to risk the chances, because the outcome is so worth it. And continually to remind ourselves in prayer that I and the Father are one, And as we know that, we shall now go within to that prayer, to that power of that God within us. There is power in this moment. And the power in this moment is within each of us. Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas believes completely and expresses wholeheartedly that this is our truth. He encourages us to seek until we find. And as we find, to experience and to recognize the opportunities within the experience to allow us to rise to a higher realm of knowing. So that every experience we have contributes to more of our beingness, contributes to more of our becoming, more of the light and the love and the peace and the joy that we are. When we sit in silence, listening to the still small voice within, there is that connection. There it is, that feeling within us. So powerful that as I feel it, I take it to mind. And I want to clone it in every moment of every day. So let not the experiences of the day block that God within. Nourish yourself with the Spirit. Drink of that water from that well of wisdom to be more of who you truly are. You are the divine incarnate. And it is God's pleasure to give you the kingdom. Take it. Own it. Master it. And be the light, the reflection to all who come in contact with you. We are truly blessed. We are the blessing. Let's say that together. We are the blessing. We are the blessing. Let that be your truth. Join me now as we say together, and so it is.